If you're a seasoned viewer here on PR and Test Drive, you'll know that we love driving sedans over crossovers. And if this is your first video you've ever seen from us, then I invite you to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and also leave a comment below and let us know what you think, as we do a lot of reviews on new vehicles, as well as classic cars, SUVs, crossovers, luxury vehicles, you name it, we've got it. Now, the Nissan Altima is a vehicle that we featured a little while ago. It's about 4 years since I drove this vehicle last. Now, for 2024, it has a slight facelift as well as a new sportier trim. Now, the facelift was actually last year for 2023, bringing a slightly updated exterior design, much more in line with what the new Nissan vehicles are looking like. So like the brand new Kicks that was just announced about a month ago has a very similar front end to this Altima. And with this SR trim, they're targeting more of a sporty audience, people who want something that looks a little bit different than just your run-of-the-mill boring sedan. Now, this is priced at about $40,000 Canadian with delivery about $35,000 in the US. That is about $3,000 more than when we featured the Altima Platinum back in 2022. Now, we all know that inflation has brought prices up quite a bit, and for 4 model years, it's not too bad overall. Powering this 2024 Nissan Altima SR is a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine producing 182 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque. It's the same as we saw back in 2020. Now, in the US, you do have the option for the VC turbo engine. We featured that engine before on some Infiniti models. That is 248 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. So if you want the ultimate performance, you can go for that. We don't get that here in Canada. Ours comes with a CVT as well as all-wheel drive. Now, there aren't too many vehicles left in the mid-size sedan segments. Vehicles like the Honda Accord, Toyota Camry, Subaru Legacy, they all come from Japan. You also have the Hyundai Sonata, which is still available in 24. Kia has discontinued the K5, and believe it or not, Chevrolet still makes a Malibu. However, there's only 2 vehicles out of those that offer all-wheel drive: the Toyota Camry and the Subaru Legacy. Now, the Camry with the XSE all-wheel drive trim is about $3,000 more than this vehicle. And if you go with the Subaru Legacy, there's only one option for Canada. They only have one trim, the GT, and it's about $6,000 more. So this is the affordable option. Now, what has changed? Really, just the exterior design has been updated, front and rear end, the new sportier package. We have different rims on here. We have winter tires, which we'll talk about on our road test, as well as a slightly updated interior. We now have a 12.3-inch infotainment system, whereas the previous one was much smaller and still running essentially the same software that we've seen from Nissan. But you do have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, along with some other features in here like a Bose audio system, sunroof, leather sport seats, wireless phone charging, as well as heated front seats and a heated steering wheel. Now, the seats only have 2-stage heating, and then there's no rear heated seats or ventilated seats, which I think in Canada, rear heated seats is definitely a must. We also have a full suite of safety technology with the Pro Pilot Assist system, giving you things like blind spot warning, lane departure warning, adaptive cruise control, rear cross traffic alert, and we do have a backup camera. If you went up with the Platinum, you would get 19-inch rims, a 360-degree camera system, as well as a Wi-Fi hotspot. Then the seats would be a little different. But we're going to take this vehicle on the road now. I want to talk about the ultimate performance of this vehicle, how it's done so far as we've been driving around, and everything else you need to know if you're in the market for about $40,000 worth of sedan. Well, folks, we're on the road now in the 2024 Nissan Altima SR, and I think we have to start this driving segment off with a good old thanks to Porsche and Audi. Why do I say that? Well, if it wasn't for Audi's Nardo Gray and Porsche's Chalk Paint, we would not have colors like this gray sky, because those brands brought out those colors, sort of a muted grayish blue, and it was super popular. And that has now trickled down to pretty much every brand. Almost every single brand has a variation of that kind of color on a vehicle. This one on the Nissan looks very sharp. You've got good contrast between the grayish paint. It's got, like, again, a bit of a blue tint to it, as well as the rest of the black trim, the sportiness to it. It looks really good. So there's a number of different color options you could go. I like this one quite a bit. So let's talk about our fuel efficiency. We completed our 100-kilometer test loop in this vehicle in 6.4 liters per 100 kilometers, which is pretty impressive. We completed our test loop in this vehicle in 2020 back in Quebec in 6.7 liters per 100 kilometers. Now, does that mean that the Altima has gotten more fuel efficient in 4 years? No, not necessarily. We always discuss how our fuel testing numbers really only matter to other vehicles we've tested on this test circuit. So your mileage will vary. Our test loop is very highway dependent, but pretty good numbers overall. You have to keep in mind that the all-wheel drive system on this vehicle can't be turned off. It's doing its own thing. There's no override, so you can just drive it in front wheel only. That is the trade-off. This is a great vehicle if you're looking to buy it here in country like Canada, where we have rougher climates in winter. This would be a good option for you because you've got all-wheel drive. And as I mentioned, there's only 2 other vehicles in this segment that have all-wheel drive. Everything else is front wheel, so it's nice to have this as an option. And to be fair, I'm getting about the fuel efficiency I would expect even in town. Now, I mentioned we have winter tires. That is something that could affect the range on this. It is like 18 degrees Celsius right now, so they just haven't swapped off the winter tires on this vehicle yet. So keep that in mind. Fuel efficiency, pretty good on the Altima. Now, I do like the facelift. I think it's given this vehicle a bit of a breath of fresh air. However, when I looked back at the video that we did in 2020, the complaints I had about this vehicle are still pretty much here. There's nothing that's overly different about the complaints that we had. HVAC controls are one of them. The controls are fine. It's just the logic behind the automatic system doesn't work very well. And it started off today. I was inside the vehicle. Started up. It's 18 degrees outside. The sun boiling in through the windshield, and the car doesn't think that it needs air conditioning. So I had to push it. I had to turn it on, which I know it's a small thing, but I'm just saying, usually you push automatic and everything is done for you. The whole point of automatic is it keeps it automatic. But I find that the temperature does fluctuate. It's not quite as consistent as we would like to see from an automatic climate control system. And then, big thing for me is rear visibility. That parcel shelf is quite thick. And I would have talked about that back in 2020. It hasn't changed here. It is kind of hard to see the little, Chevy Cruze behind me. I'm able to see the roof, and that's about it. So it's one thing I haven't noticed on too many vehicles, but this is one that it's just the way that the trunk's designed. It's a very tall trunk. Poor visibility out of the back. But aside from that, though, the seats are super comfortable. Nissan has zero gravity seats. If you haven't driven a relatively new Nissan in a while, then you're missing out because they are very comfortable, supportive. There's not a ton of movement, 8-way power for the driver, and they're functional enough. But yeah, it is comfortable. And I do feel that, on a long road trip, this would be good. We did take the Nissan Maxima back in 2019, 2020 on a road trip to Boston. We found it was quite comfortable. Even the back seats, when I was sitting back there to film the B-roll, no complaints whatsoever. Good amount of room back there too. It's one of the reasons why you're going to be looking at a mid-size vehicle. This is larger than you would get from compact vehicles, so you're getting that extra length, extra width, a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more trunk space as well. So there's a lot of reasons that you would be looking at this over a smaller Sentra. The other thing about going with a sedan is the overall ride comfort. You don't really get that with SUVs. Yeah, they're tall and they kind of roll a little bit and stuff, but I just love driving cars, and that's what I like about driving something like this Altima, because it is pretty smooth on the road. It eats up the bumps pretty well. It's certainly not class leading, again, as we mentioned, but it's got a really decent ride on it. So as you're driving along, you're hitting some of the rough roads that we have here in St. Thomas. You're not going to be feeling it as much. So I have to say that it does a pretty good job eating up the bumps, and everything else about it is pretty smooth. And I mean, that's kind of what you want out of this vehicle. You want it to be compliant, and you want it to be predictable. And that's exactly what this vehicle is. It's a pretty predictable little car, because there's nothing that surprised me about it, but that's good, because you don't really want surprises. What I'm going to say might sound mean, but keep in mind it's not. This is a toaster. Okay, you're going to go to the store and buy a toaster because you need to toast something, and that's what it is. It's an appliance. You don't really think too much about it. You want to find one that checks off all the boxes for what you want out of it. You want it to look good. You want it to fit in with your decor, and that's what every vehicle in this segment really is. It is an appliance. It's something that people buy not because they've put a Nissan Altima on their wall and they've dreamt about owning it for their entire lives. No, let's be real. You buy it because it's affordable, it's practical, and it gets the job done. And that's exactly what this vehicle does. It delivers exactly what it should. And it doesn't deliver anything it shouldn't. It gives you the experience that you're paying for just under $40,000 Canadian. And I think that's pretty rare today. And I think we're going to see, as prices continue to go up, that vehicles like this will be compelling sellers to people who want something that is affordable and gives them everything that they want. And I'm telling you, SUVs are everywhere. I'm parked here waiting for the light. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 all around. Pickup trucks as well. There's tons of them. It's nice to have a car. I love them. I love driving these. So As I always say in these videos, if you have questions about this episode or about this car, we do try to get back to everybody that we can as quickly as possible. So you can leave a comment below. We can invite you to subscribe to the channel as we're growing here on Test Drive. We've got a lot of content going on, new cars, used cars, classic cars, luxury cars, all sorts of stuff. We're doing everything here on Test Drive. So we invite you to join our community and help us grow everything that we've got going on here. So thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.